first of all, thank you for joining us. And maybe I can ask you to give some quick background on some of the work that you're overseeing at UCB and your role, and then we can get into the questions.
Anita Moser, Head of Assets and Optimization for U.S. Neurology at UCB. Very excited to be here, and thank you, ZS, for the invitation. You've been a great partner. So Pratap's right. My role, we've done a lot of innovation. Innovation is part of our core at UCB, and we have strong leadership behind us on our digital transformation, as well as we index high on digital here, and so we have a lot of investments that have been involved on kind of the predictive part of the pathway in epilepsy. And so we lead a lot of different innovative partnerships and investments, and the one we will speak today happens to impact kind of the commercial organization.
So I think you were just mentioning a little bit about your role, but sounds like you've had some success. So I think I just wanted to maybe start with a question around a lot of the folks in the audience are AI champions within their organization. I think that's kind of the role you find yourself in. What are some nuggets that you would share, some pearls of wisdom on being an AI champion in a company? What made that happen for you? What was the secret to success in some sense?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned people. I think in our world, you're trying to change workflow with AI, and you really need to understand the change management involved with the introduction of AI into their work and understand how to impact it to build champions. So that's definitely one big learning for us, is the people component of it all. I think the second is kind of an interesting one in the sense that we are, you're building for the majority for sure, but you have to make sure you're learning for the minority. And in this case, learning from the minority helps you understand how you'll innovate and change and garner further adoption in the future, which I think is really critical. So that's another piece of nugget. And then I think the other huge piece of nugget for us was understanding how much the organization has to shift in terms of your operational backbone from the beginning. Because as I mentioned, UCB is very innovative. It's part of its DNA. We have a huge digital agenda. So finding advocacy at this company relative to my past has been unique and refreshing. However, understanding how much of your operational functions have to move along with you has been a huge learning for us at UCB.
That's a very interesting phrase you use. Learn from the minority to build for the majority. I think it sort of perfectly encapsulates AI's challenge, that you do the small thing and then you have to really build scale. How have you been successful at scaling? So going from the minority to the majority.
Yeah, I mean, we think very big, but we start small, right? And it's been consistent feedback for us, right? So, and I think that vision is really what makes it successful, and the fact that the vision helps bring the organization on board and helps bring our leadership on board. And then starting small helps us learn. So we didn't go right in a lot of our initiatives. We often do a proof of concept and test. We learn about what we're trying to introduce, and we learn how, again, it changes the behavior of people to then pilot, to build, to launch. So we use a very gated approach, and we do have a culture of innovation and agility that helps us pivot quickly and learn in this whole environment of testing and learning and iterating through that process, so that we're able to adapt for our outcomes.
Got it. And actually, you pointed out another really nice nugget there, which is I think you used that in a conversation previously with me, that the pilot is also about testing the behavior of people. It's not just about testing the model, right? Which is, I think, really important, because what you're trying to do in the pilot is figure out not just does the model work, but do the people work with the model? Right?
Exactly.
So will they change how they do?
Exactly. And we, a lot of our epilepsy business, we've been fortunate in the sense that we have a leadership position in epilepsy. So a lot of our colleagues have been with us for some time. So when we introduced an AI-enabled tool to the field, the first proof of concept wasn't about the features of the application It wasn't about the benefit. It was a very small proof of concept. It truly was about how they adopted the tool. That's it. So I think that's really important for us because we took that learning and created a learning plan and a communication plan for the bigger rollout.
Right, right. And you had also mentioned that one of the sort of guiding principles that really made this successful was simplicity.
Yes.
Whereas we in AI, we practitioners tend to think of complexity. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, what's so fascinating is that a lot of our analytics are very complex here, and they're complex because we're all very curious here, and we are looking to stay ahead, and we have very interesting questions as well as we have a portfolio and a interesting go to market model as well. And with that, we know that our analytics is much more advanced. Not all of our people are as advanced as our analytics, and that you have to again think about the minority versus the majority. So if I look at applications like Waze or Netflix, it's very simple for someone to get. And it's very easy to introduce all of the analytics to someone at once. But unless their appetite for digesting analytics is comparable, you have to make sure you do it in a very gated way. And I think that took time and effort to learn, right? But it's really the co-creation that helped us understand that, which is what we spoke about earlier, which is this proof of concept and piloting, is that everything we've introduced has been a co-creation with our field colleagues. And so they are being guided by experts in analytics, but they're helping co-create what their vision is, which also helps with adoption.
Absolutely. No, that's actually very key to change management. It has to be a bit of a 60-40 or a 50-50 partnership. Going back broadly to your remit and your role, now that you've been on the AI journey for a little bit and clearly you've seen these successes, what are the couple of things you wish you knew now, or well, you wish you knew before that you know now in terms
so
of...
so much. I mean, I think one of it is the fact that the operationalization of AI tools and the embedment of a commercial organization is complex. So understanding the roadmap and the complexity of the integration of newer tools into existing systems is probably something I underscored at the beginning of all this. We got caught up in the innovation that we forgot about the operationalization and further advancement of this in the future. It can be mitigated, but it's something I wish I put a little more planning into as we thought about this. I think one of the other things is also, we spoke about, building for the majority and learning for the minority. If I had understood how much of what level of resistance in the organization I was planning for, there would be an easier way to help bring along the entire organization as we introduce different things. So I think understanding the level of resistance and the motivators for the resistance is important, as well as I think I brought up the operational backbone. That is critical to success. Understanding what it's going to take from not only introducing new technology, advanced analytics, but elevating your digital backbone is really quite important to scope out from the beginning.
Got it. And of course, we can't let the day go by without talking about COVID. This pandemic I have seen in many places sort of freeze up innovation and special projects. But I think you guys took advantage of this to continue to innovate. Tell us a little bit more about the impact.
Yeah, we did. So we were on this path with dynamic targeting. We had done a proof of concept. We had done a proof of concepts. We had pilots that were ready to roll out. And then the pandemic hit. And it was unfortunate because we had a beautifully laid out plan of doing pilots, creating adoption, creating champions, and doing further rollouts. And what we realized was that we had to hit pause a little bit, and we had to reevaluate: do we further invest and roll out, or do we pause? And then it became easy that it became an easy transition. Well, especially my role to think, okay, here are our investments. How do we pivot? And if we really thought about it, our field colleagues that were so used to interacting with our stakeholders in the external environment were no longer able to. and they were disconnected from people they saw every day, and they had impact on patient lives every day. And so what we decided was to do a full scale rollout and adapt the algorithms for COVID and help use this tool as a reentry tool for our field colleagues to connect them back with their stakeholders. And because, as we all know, the US was impacted by COVID at various levels. And so not every market is returning at the same pace. So this tool allows them to understand when HCPs are back to seeing their patients and helping fill a gap in healthcare for that particular practice that exists that they normally would not know about until they actually connected with that HCP. So this allows them to prioritize which HCPs to re-enter back with in their markets a lot more readily than the cold call or happening to find out by chance.
Right. No, that was fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing all these insights. Will this set you up for future disruptions in a better way, you feel?
Oh my God, yes, right. So this is just the beginning. Now we're looking on expanding into Omni and introducing new channels. And I should say our model has 3 different customer-facing teams that this tool allows to coordinate interactions with the HCP. Because the HCP is pretty exhausted from the experience that they're having with healthcare and treating their patients during this time of COVID. And we had to coordinate interactions between our teams to help better support the HCP and ultimately patients. So expanding on our ability to help them understand what's going on in their markets, as well as introducing new channels to this tool, will really help us. And I think, one other point of advice I could give to someone is that at UCB, we lagged on the analytics and we were very advanced in the technology. And now we have the inverse, right? Where our analytics are so advanced and the technology is catching up. So finding that right balance is quite fascinating for us.